in just a moment. Okay. Dr. Beers is giving the Pledge of Allegiance. We'll have to wait. We'll get started. Okay, thank you guys for your patience. I will reconvene this meeting of the Williamsburg-James City County School Board. And as we do, if I can have a board member certify closed session for me.
Mr. Chair, I certify to the best of each member's knowledge the Williamsburg-James City County School Board, while in closed session, discussed only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements as stated in Virginia law, and that only such public matters as we identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, and considered.
Thank you, Ms. Hundley. Is there a second on that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Ortego. Ms. Aller?
Mrs. Hunley.
Aye.
Mrs. Ortego. Aye. Mrs. Young.
Aye.
Dr. Beers.
Aye.
Mrs. Donner.
Aye.
Ms. Hummel.
Aye.
Mr. Dow.
Aye. All right. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Donner, and thank you, Dr. Beers, for the second. And Ms. Aller?
Mrs. Donner.
Aye.
Ms. Hummel.
Aye.
Mrs. Hunley.
Aye.
Mrs. Ortego.
Aye.
Mrs. Young.
Aye.
Dr. Beers.
Aye.
Mr. Dow.
Aye. All right. At this time, we're going to recognize our flag, and Dr. Beers will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. If we can stand, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America,
and to the republic
for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dr. Beers. At this time, we're going to hold the public hearing on the fiscal year 25 capital improvement plan. Just want to confirm whether there are still no speakers for this public hearing. I'm not seeing any. Okay, we're going to move on to item 5, announcements and superintendent's report. Dr. Herron.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This week is National Teen Driver Safety Week, and students at all 3 high schools are taking part in the Drive Safe Hampton Roads Seatbelt Challenge. The student-led program encourages increased seatbelt use and improved driving behaviours. Help us spread the word. Prospective support employees are encouraged to visit our job fair on Monday, November 6th from 9 to 11 a.m. or from 2 to 4 p.m. Bus drivers and aides, custodial workers, teacher assistants, and cafeteria staff all contribute to our students' success and make a tremendous impact on our community. Interviews will be conducted on site, and qualified applicants could start work as early as mid-November. Learn more and apply online at wjccschools.org/careers. And finally, October is Bullying Prevention Month, and tomorrow is Unity Day. Join us in wearing orange tomorrow as a unifying visual indicator that we stand against bullying in WJCC schools. Thank you, Mr. Chair. This concludes my report for this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Herron. Are there any reports from board members?
I do. I have one
Thank you, Ms. Hunley.
for SEAC. So we met with our 17 of 24 new members, and we talked a lot about a new peer mentoring program that we're trying to get established. One thing that's coming up for families, if you need, you can go back and look on our website, but Parks and Recs is doing a trick-or-treat disability awareness. And it's going to be on October 28th at 9 o'clock to noon. And it's down by James River. There's this building called the Abrams Frink Community Center. And the kids can come out for goodies, they can dress up. There will be lots of vendors and information about wraparound services and about special ed services and supports. Another thing that you'll see on the website on November 4th is called University, and instead of the U for university like of a college, it's YOU. It's a parent day. So there's registration information out there for that. It will be at the Williamsburg Regional Library, and you should be getting something from the Peach Jar if you're interested. We also heard a report that was really interesting from a teacher rep named Miss Newberry, who had an in-service where they described the new generation of children we have now are, they call them the Gen Alpha. So that was new to me, Gen Alpha. They're actually the kids of the I have braces, so you know that word I'm trying to say, millennials. Millennials, I'm sorry, my braces sometimes trick me up, and Gen Z. So there's a lot of resources that they're learning about using technology, because these are the children that were born into this technology age. So I'm hoping one day we'll get back to like school spotlights so I can hear more about that group of children and how they're learning. And then some of our future endeavors, we're going to look at the grading policy and a parenting mentoring program for bright beginning parents. And the last thing is we have another meeting on November 9th, and all are welcome for that.
Thank you, Ms. Hundley. Any other reports? Excuse me. Thank you, Ms.
And I
Hundley.
have one more.
Yeah, please
Sorry.
continue, Ms. Hundley.
So Mrs. Ortego and I went on a virtual report for the Legislative Advocacy Conference, and it was put on from the state, and it's talking about what a lot of parents, I know that you all are hearing about, All In now. So it is, ALL stands for Accreditation, Literacy, and Learning, and they pretty much were giving us a skeleton view of how this is going to work. And so I'm a visual learner and a kinesthetic learner, but the way they describe this, because it makes a lot of sense. So I was appreciative to hear the state talk about our children, because a lot of times teachers think that our division just put something on their plate, but really we do get guidance from the state. So if you can imagine, the skeleton's head is the state. So the state has articulated to Dr. Herron and her team, which are the arms, as to we're going to be sending monies down. 70% of the money is going to go towards tutoring, 20% towards literacy, 10% towards accreditation, and then they're going to work on teams to find out how to make that work to help with the learning loss we had during the pandemic. Then they will articulate that to the teachers, the other arm, because you know the left hand needs to know what the right hand is doing. And then we have even the backbone or the spine of the skeleton. Those are our support people. We still need drivers for buses to get our children to school. We still need the children that aren't getting food to have food through food services, our assistants, our counselors, all of that. And then the community is the pelvic. The community has to help too, because if we get this money, we're going to need people that are willing to help tutor. So we have some groups out there like the Village Initiative, NAACP, faith groups that may want to, and some of you in the audience may want to help tutor students, and they'll have an all-in playbook which will help you to be able to tutor students. And then we have teachers on this side, one of the legs, students on the other side, parents. Everybody has to work together, and that's what she's saying. We all have to stay connected, because we're not going to probably see a big shift in scores and things until possibly 2025, if we have all hands and feet on deck, boots on deck, and we're all working to get this done. So that's kind of what they said, why they use the skeleton model. But I know teachers are working hard, staff is working hard, parents are working hard, and kids are working hard, and we are very, very encouraged that we can cut the learning loss. And so that, it was just good for me to know that there are people at the state that actually have degrees and know what they were talking about and really want to support us and acknowledge that the work we have to do is hard, but we just need to stay connected. So did I leave anything out?
Oh, I think that was a great summary.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Huntley. Again, any other reports from other board members? All right, thank you very much. We'll move on to item 6, public comment for the evening. Ms. Ortega?
It is at this point in our meeting where citizens are invited to address the board. Those citizens desiring to speak have submitted speaker cards to the clerk prior to the start of tonight's meeting. These speakers are asked to come to the podium when their names are called, state their names for the record, and direct their comments to the chair of the board. It is the board's interest and desire that all comments are heard and respected. Hence, the citizens are asked not to engage in applauding, verbal outbursts, or any other type of demonstrations during the presentations. Personnel matters are not considered in public meetings. Therefore, the board requests that all speakers refrain from making reference to specific individuals in any form or fashion. Though the board does not respond to your comments are heard and appreciated. Each speaker is allocated 2 minutes to make their presentation, and the board asks that you respect this time limitation. Also, please be reminded that no time may be yielded to another speaker. Your acceptance and adherence to these guidelines will be greatly appreciated. Thank you, Mr. Chair. My directions are concluded.
Thank you, Ms. Ortega.
Jay Everson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jay Everson, 6923 Chancery Lane in Colonial Heritage. I know that on your budget timeline, you had August and September for what I call random suggestions, but I couldn't make it either of those 2 months. I'm back again after about 5 or 6 years ago about health insurance. Last year, you spent about $17,900,000. This year, it's about $19,300,000. And at the budget discussions this past year, they originally come through at a 15+% increase. You got it down to 9.9. At the same time that you got 9.9, the county only had a 3.2% increase because their plans are self-insured and your plans are fully insured. And if you had had a self-insured plan and were able to have the 3.2% increase rather than 9.9, you would have saved $857,000. Now, that's not quite 1% for teachers, but it's pretty darn close. And you can anticipate some significant increases coming next year on health insurance. But I think my suggestion is that you take a look at self-insurance, because I think we can save the taxpayers a lot of money and free up money that could be used for your personnel without any increase in your budget. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Everson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Oh.
Susan Cameron.
Hello, Susan Cameron. My address? What else?
Unnecessary.
Not necessary. Thank you so much. I'm here tonight on behalf of the students and teachers at James Blaine Blaketon Elementary School and the recent findings of mold. I'm not sure how much you guys are even aware of this. There's children and teachers right now getting sick. The planned solution to remediate is very bothersome to me. My family suffered from mold toxicity for the last 6 years, and mold in itself is very insidious, can be very dangerous. I went to open house the night they had it, and I was dizzy in my son's school classroom. That dizziness is indicative of a certain type of black mold that grows. That is my symptom for mold. So I knew at that point there was probably an issue. Humidity levels reached 80% for several weeks. 80% in a building with temperatures in this time of the year basically means it was raining inside of the school. So if you've already had moisture problems, which we have learned the school does have, that's basically nuclear mold exploding all throughout the school. The school now has mycotoxins and molds throughout the school. I walked the facility with the director of facilities, and he was very kind and allowed me to do my own dust sampling, which I sent to a lab that is EPA certified. That lab has a basically a table that says if you reach a level 15, that reoccupancy is ill-advised until further remediation or reassessment are conclusive. It came back at 18 for my son's classroom. I randomly sampled the school, wiping desks, different places in the stairwells. It came back a level 22. Facilities, they sampled 6 classrooms. Out of those 6, 4 failed. That's 66% of the classrooms failed. Those levels were very high and dangerous. I later, though, learned that the art room and the music room have both had water intrusion. They weren't even sampled.
Thank you, Ms. Cameron.
Is that my time?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you. If you have information that you'd be willing to share with the board, you can give that to the clerk. Thank you, Ms. Cameron.
Andrew Kaysen.
Hello, my name is Andy Kaysen. I'm a teacher and a parent and the treasurer of WJCEA. WJCC educators want a union negotiated contract. WJCEA has now collected over 650 authorization cards. The most active employee type is teachers. We are almost at half teachers right now, and we are still collecting as I speak. But it's more than just pay and benefits that we want to negotiate for and sit down with central office and negotiate as equals. Teachers need more resources to teach students of all needs. We need more unencumbered planning time. We need more supports for students with behavioral issues. And for me personally, being able to push back on some of the testing that is monopolizing our class time and is just sapping the fun out of learning. All this can be negotiated in a union contract, like many other states do, like Florida or Pennsylvania or Oklahoma. And you can't put students first if you put teachers last. I think it's pretty clear that from the last speaker, you know, it just hammers down my next point, which is student learning conditions are our working conditions, right? We can see this clearly with this issue of mold, right? A union contract can empower teachers to ensure that the room they share with their students is safe and healthy. A contract keeps both teachers and central office accountable and keeps students first. I know for me personally, when I walk into a high school classroom, I see wires everywhere because we have one-to-one now. I know personally one employee who has tripped, causing them serious injury. Please consider collective bargaining.
Nico Anderson.
Nico Anderson. I am a transgender student at Toyota Middle School, and I am disappointed to see the new policies the WJCC school district is putting into place against transgender students. I once thought school was a place where I could be myself without being discriminated against, but I have come to find that is not true. I believe that some staff at my school in particular are supportive of transgender students, but now they will be forced to discriminate against them. Now not only will transgender students be bullied by their transphobic peers, but by their own school as well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson.
David Brewster.
Good evening to members of the school board and James City County residents. My name is David Brewster. I have one granddaughter at Stonehouse Elementary School and will have 2 more grandchildren there in the next few years. On July 18th of this year, the Virginia Department of Education issued the final 2023 model policies, known formally as the Model Policies on Ensuring Privacy, Dignity, and Respect for All Students and Parents in Virginia Public Schools. The Governor's Office issued the following statement about these policies. All children in Virginia deserve to have a parent engaged in their life and to be treated with dignity and respect. The VDOE updated model policies reaffirm my administration's continued commitment to ensure that every parent is involved in conversations regarding their child's education, upbringing, and care. Public comment, input, and concerns were carefully evaluated and assessed to formulate the updated model policies. The Department of Education has delivered policies that empower parents, prohibit discrimination, create a safe and vibrant learning environment by addressing bullying instances immediately, and protecting the privacy and dignity of all students through bathroom policies, athletic procedures, and student identification measures. This was all said by Governor Glenn Youngkin. The Attorney General's opinion makes clear that school boards must adopt these policies consistent with the 2023 model policies. Local school boards and their members that elect not to adopt a model of policies consistent with those released by the Department for the upcoming school year may assume legal responsibility for noncompliance. You may wish to seek legal counsel if your child or children are impacted by the actions of your local school board. I urge the board to immediately adopt the Virginia Department of Education's 2023 model policies and to let us all know how we will learn when you've adopted these policies. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brewster.
Michael Hosang.
Good evening. I would like to comment on the report that was provided at your recent working group showing the poor test scores for Williamsburg and James City County Schools, which highlights this school system's failure to properly educate our children. In several categories, WJCC schools tested below the state benchmark, or in other words, these were failing scores. But as several of you pointed out, at least WJCC schools tested above the state average for these tests. So put in this perspective, most of you are happy that our schools tested above the state average, even though the state average and the WCC test scores were both below the state benchmark. That's not setting a good example for our students when you're happy that we are simply not as bad as others. It was stated that the bad test scores were a result of the pandemic. Strange that other school districts like York County seem to be doing well in spite of the pandemic. So why not WJCC? Why is York County not using the pandemic as an excuse and continues to excel, but JCC continues to use this as an excuse? It was fitting that you said you wanted to know what York County was doing and that you needed to follow their lead and steal their success. That's another good example to show our students. Let's not lead from the front. Let's not be proactive. Let's be reactive. We'll be mediocre, wait for another district to excel, and then try to copy and steal what they did. Meanwhile, you're leaving several years of students to receive a poor education until you finally decide to take action. Only one of you expressed concern with the test scores, calling it a disappointing report and asking the question, what is going wrong? Strange how no one answered that question or tried to come up with an answer, except to blame the pandemic and to steal the York County's decisions. Now, this just happens to coincide with the NISH report that recently came out, which ranked all of the high schools in Virginia. Sadly, none of WJCC schools were in the top 25. Jamestown ranked 33rd, Lafayette 73rd, War Hill 84th. In comparison, York County, Richmond, and Virginia Beach all had 2 schools each in the top 25. Thank you.
Mr. Hosang.
Crystal Anderson.
Hi, my name is Crystal Anderson, and I have 3 children who go to WJCC schools. I'm here to speak out against the new policies WJCC has put into place regarding transgender students. As a mother of transgender kids, I'm afraid. I'm worried about the kids who used to think of school as a safe place to be themselves, who do not have a supporting adult in their lives outside of school, and who now must endure being misgendered and dead-named on a regular basis both at home and now at school. According to the Trevor Project, LGBTQ kids are twice as likely to consider an attempt suicide. Fewer than 1 in 3 youth found their home to be gender affirming. And these youth who also found their school to be affirming reported much lower rates of attempting suicide. This issue is extremely important to me as I'm a parent who supports her children, and still my children tried to end their lives because of influences of people who do not accept them. The U.S. Department of Education states in their document on supporting transgender youth in school that they found in a national survey that transgender students are 3 times more likely to miss school than other students. Please reconsider the discriminatory model policies the school board is looking at adopting for transgender students from Governor Youngkin. Having such policies in place does not help make our kids want to be in school and makes them feel bullied on a regular basis. I implore you to talk with families like ours who know the weight of policies like this will carry for our kids before they are accepted. You choose this, you can change it. I believe this is truly a life or death issue.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson.
Marco Sardi.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and Dr. Herron. My name is Marco Sardi, the president of WJCEA and a teacher here at James Blair Middle School. In honor of Unity Week, I want to begin by giving a special shout out and gratitude to the custodial team here at JBMS led by Mr. CT for all the hard work that they do. Between covering central office and staying after to help with sporting events and these board meetings, they put in many hours of hard labor to ensure our spaces are clean and ready for use, and I thank them dearly. I would also like to talk to you about another way in which we can show our support for one another to create a more positive and enticing learning environment for our students and educators. As I know this board is aware, WJCEA has repeatedly advocated for a competitive living wage to attract and retain quality staff. Unfortunately, while we saw major gains in this area last year, we still find many schools operating on precariously thin staffing, with 1 or 2 absences often causing high strain. Like pinching holes in a sheet of dough, these short-term fixes serve only to thin that which remains. Most urgently, bus drivers again are the canary in this coal mine, with Gloucester, Newport News, and York all having a higher compensation plan than WJCC. It should be no surprise then that transportation is stretched thin each day as we try to get students safely to and from school, which is a duty our community has made clear is one of the highest of priorities. If we cannot compete with salary, then we need to compete with an attractive and employee-negotiated contract to include things like a defined, clear work hour, clearly defined duties and expectations, and setting a real pay scale so employees can plan for their future. I urge you to support our efforts to bargain for our contracts, as 1/3 of all of our employees have already signed their assent to do so. I encourage you to reach out to our board email that I've included in this statement to continue this conversation as we continue to gain a majority of employee support. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Sardi.
John Slukowitz.
Good evening. I truly don't understand what's going on in our school district. You guys should write a book, just entitle it, How to Poison Our Children. We all knew that you were poisoning them with the pesticide-ridden slop that you feed them on a daily basis. And because of the research and due diligence of a few people here, we now know about the poison that you feed them, their brains, through the repetitive indoctrination you drill into them by way of your curriculum. But now it's been brought to my attention that mold spore levels at JBB Elementary School, where my children attend, are over 200 times higher than the recommended amount before evacuation is necessary. Children and staff members are literally being poisoned with the very air that they breathe. And the administration is at the least being incompetent with their remediation, and at its worst, purposely deceiving and outright lying to parents, while pressuring and silencing teachers and staff members to not speak with parents and give their opinions. I've received copies of test results taken by a professional mold remediation company hired by JBB, along with their recommendations. Along with that, I have emails sent from the principal of the school from before, after, and during their own supposed mold remediation, stating that, quote, there are not now and at no point were there widespread or dangerous instances of mold. Then those same test results that they requested yielded scores that are hundreds of times higher than levels healthy for human interaction. After reaching out beyond that to the director of operations, where more fabrications and lies followed, in an email the day after the report summary came out, was stated, the results showed reduction of internal spores count less than the spore counts outside, yet the lab report dated 1 day earlier shows levels of black mold inside the classroom, inside classroom specific 115, were at a 7,000 level, where outside is 41. Thank you. I have some.
Gina McDaniel, or Jenna, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right.
Hi, it's actually Jenna Cumming. McDaniel's my maiden name, but thank you for having me this evening. Thank you for all that you do for our kids in our schools. I'll start by saying I am very involved in JBB and Tueno Middle. Actually was at both schools today working and being a chaperone for a field trip that my kid, I found out, wasn't even going to be on, which I thought was funny. I was like, I'll go anyway. It's cool. And so I'm very, very involved with PTA, very involved with the schools, but we obviously have a problem at JBB that needs to be addressed. The week before school, it was 90 to 100 degrees in the school building. I heard that teachers were actually leaving JBB and going over to Hornsby to work because it was way too hot in their classrooms at JBB for them to work. I know for a fact that a couple weeks into school, a child brought a humidistat into their classroom, and it read 80% humidity in their classroom. There were posters literally falling off of the walls because of how wet they were. It was difficult for students to write on their papers with their pencils because of the humidity in the classroom and how wet the papers were. I'm not an expert on all of this, and I don't want to claim to be at all, but there's obviously been abnormal test results. There have been emails sent out to parents that I could tell definitely were not written by our principal. It didn't seem like her verbiage. And now I find out that they were sent by somebody in the higher ups, and they've been vetted by lawyers, so the verbiage is acceptable. Obviously, there's a problem if verbiage is being vetted by lawyers before they're being sent out. I have heard from multiple teachers that they are being threatened, that their phone records are going to be subpoenaed if they talk to parents about what is going on at the school. There's this find the mole mentality. Something needs to happen. Obviously, there is a problem at JBB. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Joe Catterin.
Howdy, my name's Joe Catterin. I've spoken with some of you as a freelance reporter, but I'm here tonight just as an ordinary resident of James City County. I had the privilege recently of going to a movie screening called Voices of Integration, which was put on by the local Black Histories Project and hosted by the Village Initiative. And it featured interviews with the first fully integrated graduating class at our school division, which was in 1969 at James Blair, although then, up until then, it had been a whites-only high school. And it was a great film. I think they're putting on another screening next month. I encourage everybody to go. But I wanted to talk about something that came up during the Q&A session during that movie, which was about James Blair as a school name and why it still bore the name of James Blair when he was an enslaver. And so like many of us, you know, I'd heard the name James Blair living here. I went to William & Mary, so I saw his statue on campus, but I didn't really know that much about him. And I've had the opportunity to look into it since the movie. And it turns out, based on what I've found, that he wasn't just an enslaver, but he was an advocate for slavery and spreading it in Virginia. As an Anglican minister, he believed that churches allowing slavery would encourage more English clergymen to move to Virginia, and the first enslaved people that were held by the College of William & Mary were loaned by him. And so I think, I know that back when James Blair Middle School opened in 2018, that there had been some discussion about a possible new name for the school. But I think that discussion should be revisited, considering the seriousness of the history involved, as well as the history of segregation at the school division. And I know that an online survey was sent out to sort of gather community input, but I think that it would be better if there was a more thorough in-person approach taken. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Catterin.
That was our final speaker.
Okay, thank you all for coming out and sharing your voices. Move on to our consent agenda for the evening. 19 items. If I may have a motion, as we move on to our consent agenda, motion to approve the consent agenda as read. Item 7.1, approval of the financial report and monthly bills and payroll for September 23. Approval of minutes from September 19th's meeting. 7.3, approval of minutes from October 3rd's meeting. Item 7.4, approval of resolution R1823, National School Psychology Week. Item 7.5, approval of resolution R1923, Native American Heritage Month. Item 7.6, approval of resolution R20-23, an endorsement of the Safe Routes to School project. 7.7, approval of release from compulsory attendance, case number R2324-09. 7.8, approval of revisions to policy LBD, home instruction. 7.9, approval of revisions to policy IGBG, homebound instruction and alternative means of instruction. 7.10, approval of revisions to policy JJHC/GBEC, communicable diseases. 7.11, approval of revisions to policy IIBD, school libraries, media centers. 7.12, approval of revisions to policy GCDA, conditions of employment. 7.13, approval of revisions to policy GCLB, tuition assistance program, or TAP. 7.14, approval of revisions to policy FFA, school names. 7.15, approval of revisions to policy BBA, school board powers and duties. 7.16, approval of revisions to policy BBB, appointment and election of school board members. 7.17, approval of revisions to policy BBFA, board member conflict of interests and member ethics. 7.18, approval of revisions to policy BCF, school board committees. And finally, 7.19, approval of revisions to policy BDDE, rules of order. Is there a motion on the consent agenda as read?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve consent agenda as presented.
Thank you, Ms. Ortego.
Second.
Second. Thank you, Ms. Hundley. Ms. Aller?
Mrs. Ortego.
Aye.
Mrs. Young.
Aye.
Dr. Beers. Mrs. Donner.
Aye.
Ms. Hummel.
Aye.
Mrs. Hundley.
Aye.
Mr. Dowell.
Aye. Before we move on to our action items, hearing Ms. Hummel's voice and Ms. Young's voice, it reminds me that we did cover this in closed session, but coming over here for our regular meeting, did not inform you that we do have two members that are home with medical issues to take care of. So they're joining us, and I appreciate that they are joining us electronically rather than getting the rest that they need. All right, moving on to action items. 8.1, if I can have a motion to approve personnel actions.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve personnel actions as presented.
Thank you, Ms. Donner. Is there a second? Thank you, Dr. Beers. Ms. Aller?
Mrs. Donner.
Aye.
Ms. Hummel.
Aye.
Mrs. Hundley.
Aye.
Mrs. Ortego.
Aye.
Mrs. Young.
Aye.
Dr. Beers. Mr. Dowell.
Aye. All right. Is there a motion on item 8.2 to approve the revisions to the 23-24 school year calendar?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the revisions to the 2023-2024 school year calendar as presented.
Thank you, Ms. Donner.
Second.
And thank you, Ms. Ortego, for the second. And this revision allows us to take advantage of a graduation venue on June 14th. I don't think there was any other major consideration there, just for graduation on June 14th. All right. Any further discussion on this, clarification on the matter? Ms. Aller?
Mrs. Donner.
Aye.
Ms. Hummel.
Aye.
Mrs. Hundley.
Aye.
Mrs. Ortego.
Aye.
Mrs. Young.
Aye.
Dr. Beers.
Aye.
Mr. Dowell.
Aye. Item 8.3, is there a motion to approve the 24-25 school year calendar?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the 2024-2025 school year calendar as presented.
Thank you, Ms. Hundley. Is there a second on this motion?
Second.
Ms. Donner? Thank you, Ms. Donner. Any discussion? I see Dr. Keeper.
Yep.
We're here.
Mr.
on this
Chair,
item.
Mr. Keeper is going to just present a couple of slides on the feedback we received from the community before the board votes tonight on the calendar. It'll be a very brief presentation. Thank you, Mr. Keeper.
Thank you, Dr. Herron. Good evening, members of the board. This evening, I wanted to just provide for you quick snippets of feedback from the community. As a reminder, at the last meeting, we did present the key dates for the 24-25 academic calendar there before you here. The feedback window for the community was open 10 or 11 days. I believe it was the 3rd through the 13th of October. During that period of time, we received 260 comments from community members. Those community members indicated that they were parents, they indicated that they were teachers or members of our staff, etc. You might be wondering about the 260 in relation to previous calendar feedback opportunities. In the last iteration of the feedback calendar comment portion, 468 people weighed in on the calendar. The feedback themes were kind of lumped into several categories. A number of folks responded that they loved the calendar, thought it was a great calendar, let's keep the calendar. There are other folks that indicated that if WJCC was starting earlier, we should end earlier in terms of the start for the school year and the end for the school year. Additionally, there were some folks that indicated a preference for starting after Labor Day. There were questions and suggestions regarding the number and placement of student holidays throughout the calendar. And then finally, there were some questions related to the placement of spring break. The 260 calendar comments that we received would equate to approximately 2% of student enrollment in terms of those folks that had information that they felt like they wanted to share with us. With respect to the calendar that we presented, administratively, we still feel like that is the appropriate calendar to bring forward. Happy to answer any questions at this time.
Questions for Mr. Keeper?
I have a question. If we received some feedback that wasn't there, that we might want to discuss for the future, we're still able to do that, right? Even if the calendar gets approved?
Meaning for the 24-25 calendar?
Yes.
I believe our intention is once you approve the 24-25 calendar, that we would have a calendar then that is ready to go. If there are other thoughts on building out the calendar for 25-26, I think it'd be taken into consideration for that process.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So I appreciate you providing a snapshot of the feedback that you received. It says 2% of student enrollment. Does that suggest that the feedback was just from students? Maybe you said that and I missed it. I'm sorry.
Right. So there were 260 respondents. If that 260 were compared to our 11,300 students that are enrolled, it's about 2% of our student enrollment in total. It was a predominance. In fact, I believe the 2 students responded, a middle school student and a high school student. The rest of the respondents making up the 260 were parents or staff members or a combination of both.
That was going to be my next question. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So we did hear from staff.
We did. Okay. I was trying to set the context for the volume of comments relative to the number of students we have enrolled.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Ortega.
And for the staff response, did it seem, I don't think it's broken out here by category, so is that the ones that love it? Was there...
Different staff members had different feelings about the calendar. Some staff members felt like there should be more days for staff work days prior to the start of the school year. Other staff members felt like there needed to be time built into the calendar for staff to have work days during the course of the school year. Many staff members that responded appreciated the 2 full weeks at the winter holiday. A couple staff members wished that if we were starting earlier, we could end earlier by way of fewer work days during the course of the school year. It was a mixture from the staff, just like it was a mixture from the parents that weighed in as well.
I'm curious, for my part, I had, over the last 2 weeks since we had this presentation, I had not had any feedback from community members or staff members related to the calendar as it was presented to the school board. I did not see one, so I'm curious what the feedback was to the board. Ms.
I think there is just one question around the from a teacher perspective, I think there was a change to adding 7 minutes to the end of the day. So then does that mean that they're working more hours or more days over the course? But that was the only comment that I saw.
Not aware of that as a part of the academic calendar discussion in terms of length of workday.
I think that if I can respond back to him, I think the set of comments, and I could pull it up, was essentially we're working the same number of days and there's 7 minutes that was added to the end of the day. So if you multiply the 7 minutes times the 190, or I forgot what their 191 contract days, then that equates to them actually working 200 days versus 191 days because of the extra added on. And so I think it was just more a general question of, so then I guess there should be less days to make up for it, or I think that was the gist of the person's concern.
I think one of the things that's really important to us as an organization is keeping the 180 days of instruction for students coming very much from a student's needs perspective. And rather than going to the 990 hours, which is also one of the state requirements, either 180 days or 990. And we start with the 180 because we think it's really important to have students here for 180 days.
And just the one other piece, it's just all coming back to me, was around, because I think the 7 minutes was added because of the inclement weather. So then that extra 7 minutes, if we had to cut days, I think allowed us to get the hours in or something like that. And so, but they don't get back if we don't have inclement weather days. So.
I think there was a change a number of years ago, but I think the schedule's been readjusted since then.
That was all I got.
Yes. There's a specific concern. I think we're happy to look at it, helping people understand work hours and some of those kinds of scenarios within the contractual number of days that someone is supposed to work. So if you want to forward it on to Dr. Heron for administration to take a look at, we're happy to look at it.
Right, yeah. And as I'm listening to that, the question I would have is that something that happened in the last few months, or is that something that change that occurred years ago that we're just not hearing about? So it'd be interesting.
I think there was a change made several years ago because of inclement weather. Rather than adding days on to the end of the year, we added minutes on, but I do believe that has changed since then. One of the key things is this very much focuses on the student calendar, and that's what the board's approving the academic calendar this evening. The calendar for teachers and other employees relates to their days of work in their contract, and the teachers do work many days, 203 days, which is more than the 180.
All right. I have another question, but I don't think I'm going to dig into it right now. It does have to do with professional development. That might be what that was getting to.
There was also some concerns with that.
Getting to professional development, which is a part of the academic calendar, right?
That's a part of the extra days that the teacher works as part of their contract, that they're paid beyond the 180 to 203, 202.
It's a 203-day calendar. There's a expectation that you work 193 of those. You get 10 holidays as a staff member. So in fact, 180 instructional days, and then there are 13 days that are built into the teacher contract for work when instruction is not happening. As an example, the 5 days preceding the start of school, that would count towards that 193. This year, we had 5 days preceding the start of school, the Friday before Labor Day, so that gets to 6. Days 7 and 8 of that contract are the Monday and Tuesday, the first week of November for parent conferences and grade closeout. There are 2 more days in this current year's calendar at the end of January for that same purpose. So those 13 days are built generally at a time where it can maximize the time for teachers to have time between grading period or marking periods with some pre-service time before the school year starts. Does that answer your question, Mr. Dow?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Yep.
And Mr. Dow, that time is divided for some time provided for collaboration, which was something that teachers really wanted time to do. Some of that time is dedicated to planning, and then some of that time is dedicated to professional learning. And we're very cognizant of when teachers need additional time for planning near grades and things like that. And we continue to look at how those days are distributed throughout the year, and the number of hours even in each day, and how those are distributed between planning, collaboration, and professional learning.
So to Ms. Hunley's question, which no, we wouldn't take other opportunities in the year to readdress the calendar if we approve today. What Ms. Donner brings up, that is kind of a separate situation that can be addressed as far as it goes, as far as the teacher time consideration goes.
I mean, there's some flexibility with the use of the time, but if we were to take off a day of the teacher contract, then we would pay them for 1 day less.
All right, I'm satisfied. Going around, Ms. Young, Ms. Hummel, you still with us? Following the conversation? Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. No questions. Okay, I think we'll go ahead and call the question. Ms. Aller?
Mrs. Hunley.
Aye.
Mrs. Ortego.
Aye.
Mrs. Young.
Aye.
Dr. Beers.
Aye.
Mrs. Donner.
Aye.
Ms. Hummel.
Aye.
Mr. Dow.
Aye. All right, if I can have a motion on item 8.4, the approval of purchase request and budget transfer for Stonehouse Elementary boiler replacements.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the purchase request for Stonehouse Elementary boiler replacements to Warwick Mechanical using annual contract number 19-13739 for a total cost of $295,772 and the associated budget transfer from unspent capital improvement project funds.
Thank you, Ms. Donner. Is there a second?
Second.
I think that was Ms. Ortego. Any discussion? Matter that needs clarifying? Okay, Ms. Aller?
Mrs. Donner.
Aye.
Ms. Hummel.
Aye.
Mrs. Hunley.
Aye.
Mrs. Ortego.
Aye.
Mrs. Young.
Aye.
Dr. Beers.
Aye.
Mr. Dow.
Aye. All right, is there a motion to approve the revision to the math textbook selection and adoption timeline?
I move to approve the revisions to the math textbook selection and adoption timeline.
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Beers, for the second. Ms. Hunley for the motion. This comes to us, we had previously approved this timeline at the September 19th board meeting, and shortly thereafter, VDOE changed their timeline, which pushed ours back from October through December to March 4th through April 22nd of 2024. So that's why this comes back to us now. Any questions about that? Ms. Aller?
Mrs. Hunley.
Aye.
Mrs. Ortego.
Aye.
Mrs. Young.
Aye.
Dr. Beers.
Aye.
Mrs. Donner.
Aye.
Ms. Hummel.
Aye.
Mr. Dow.
Aye. Okay, final action item for the evening, 8.6, if there's a motion to approve the appointment to the Career Ready Advisory Committee.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the appointment of Haley Leflet to the Career Ready Advisory Committee for a term ending on June 30th, 2024.
All right, thank you, Ms. Ortego. Is there a second?
Second.
I think that was Ms. Donner. Thank you, Ms. Donner. Just need to look that direction. This, again, comes to us. We had recently approved members to this committee, and Ms. Leflet, she lobbied to participate as well, and she was seen fitting to do so. And so we are ready to appoint her to this committee and appreciate her willingness to serve. Ms. Aller?
Mrs. Ortego.
Aye.
Mrs. Young.
Aye.
Dr. Beers.
Aye.
Mrs. Donner.
Aye.
Ms. Hummel.
Aye.
Mrs. Hunley.
Aye.
Mr. Dow.
Aye. All right. Rounding out the evening with our board member comments, I'll start with Dr. Beers, and then I'll go virtual. Give you a heads up.
I really have no comments tonight.
Fair enough. Thank you, Dr. Beers. Ms. Hummel?
I don't have any comments, thanks. Thanks for letting me participate remotely. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you you being with us as well. Ms. Young?
Yes, I don't have any comments either, but thank you for allowing me to participate virtually.
Thank you, Ms. Young. Ms. Donner?
As many of us, you see, we're wearing orange for school bullying, and so just really proud of all of our students who are kind of stepping up and standing against bullying. I'm also just so proud of our students who come to speak in these large forums, as well as Ms. Lefflet, who is a student and who lobbied to be on this advisory committee. And I think it's just wonderful that our young people are taking their futures in their own hands and asking to be on these committees and speaking. So I'm just so proud of them.
Thank you, Ms. Donner. Ms. Hundley?
Yes, I have three things. Friday Night Lights. I'm so glad I don't have a student at Lafayette. Now I can be neutral. And so that War Hill Lafayette game was something, a nail biter. I want to give a shout out to Mrs. Hundley, who works security at Lafayette High School, who helped organize with her team the 50th year anniversary for Lafayette. She did a fabulous job. There were events the whole week, and it included homecoming court and places for different groups to meet and celebrate their time at Lafayette High School. Also, I wanted to say that Governor Youngkin has assembled an 11-member team which will travel to 8 regions to assist with what's going on and to look at the challenges and the successes that different school divisions are having. And he is encouraging, and he sees the value of districts sharing their successes. And so I just wanted to say that. And lastly, buses. I wanted to give a plug for bus. We still need buses. Bus drivers. So, and I promise I won't do this often, but I haven't got to get into schools, but we'll be getting in October and November. So this is so anybody out there watching, you can please put in the application to drive the bus. I don't know what anybody's heard, but you have power, you have that little stop sign, we have cameras now, nobody's gonna pass you. If you're elementary run, I've been behind elementary buses. And those parents I'm behind them and they're talking to the bus driver. Sometimes they're getting treats. They're hugging the kids. And I'm like, so elementary is pretty good. The kids love to be there. Now, middle school, don't be afraid with middle school because I've seen them get on the bus with their technology, right? They have their cell phones. And I was hoping Mrs. Young would be here. I know they're looking at Taylor Swift videos and Beyonce because she mentioned that. So they're good. Now, when you get to high school, a lot of the kids don't ride the bus on high school if you're juniors or seniors. I know my child didn't want to be caught dead on a bus, so either I had to drive them or they can't wait to get their own license or someone takes them. They will also get on the bus, but they've been up on social media all night and studying, so they're going to be asleep. So all I'm saying is, if we can get 3 to 5 new applications, it would make me happy. I would drive a bus if it was a little bit shorter because that's intimidating, but I know they have somebody that will train you, do the runs with you. So this is my video, y'all, of a day in the life of a bus driver, and the only hard thing will be bus evacuation because I've seen them do that at the elementary school. They get off the back and stuff. But this bus, I'm not going to take the top off, but it comes with a little, in case the bus catches on fire hydrant, the little thing, the fire extinguisher. So I'm saying it's important. We need you. Anybody that has a CDL, help us out and come drive for our kiddos. That's my public service for anyone out there watching.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Hundley. That's the first.
Yeah.
I got a picture of it. Okay. Ms. Sortigo.
Well, that's a tough act to follow. I have no toys or audio visuals. And I don't have a lot of comments tonight. I'll keep it brief. I do want to thank, as always, all of the speakers that came out. It's incredibly important for us to hear directly from our community, our students, our parents, and our teachers. And so we thank everyone that took the time. I also know that the health and safety and well-being of all of our students and staff and families is the highest priority for all of my board colleagues and the superintendent. And so I know there were a number of concerns that were raised, and I do look forward to hearing the explanation and how we can resolve those issues. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I know Dr. Heron has asked for a moment to respond to some of the comments that were shared regarding mold this evening, and offer her that opportunity in a moment. But as Ms. Ortego has shared, there's nothing more important than the safety of every single child, student, faculty and staff member, parent that is volunteering. Thank you, Miss, for volunteering even today in the schools. That is the most important thing that's on our agenda every single day that we wake up. And so when we hear about mold, we take it very seriously. I can say from a recent personal professional experience, having dealt with this at the place that I work, it is something that you have to address, and you've got to address it expeditiously. And it requires certain things to be done properly. And so I want to turn this over for a moment to Dr. Heron, who did ask for a moment to respond. Dr. Heron.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the comments expressed tonight of genuine concern about mold. And yes, we have had an issue of mold in one of our schools. Mr. Snipes and his team in operations, and Mr. Keever's been involved in that as well, have been very involved with the school right from day one. In fact, some of our issues started in the summer with an air conditioning problem. Mr. Keever, you want to start and just give us the public a sense of where we genuinely are with this issue, what we've done to try to mitigate some of the issues that we have, and if Mr. Snipes needs to jump in, let's just take a moment to really tell the public what's going on.
Yes, ma'am, be happy to. To your point, Dr. Heron, we had some HVAC issues that really began in the middle part of August at JBB. Those HVAC issues included a systems control issue that did not allow necessarily for the HVAC system to be controlled in the fashion that we wanted to be able to control it. Those issues continued towards the latter part of the month of August. There were some emergency repairs to those control systems, which allowed the school division to take back control of the HVAC. At the same time that was occurring, there were some humidity concerns that began to emerge at JBB over the course of that. So that's generally about the week of September the 4th. Into the week of September the 11th, we visibly saw some mold remnants. And at the end of that week, which would be September 15th, we took some mold tests to be able to best understand what it is that was occurring. Over the course of the last 3 or 4 weeks, we have tested and retested and cleaned and recleaned several classrooms. And just the weekend of the 6th of October, there was an external group that came in and did some remediation efforts in 4 specific classrooms. Classroom 109, 117, 115, and 124. And reading from the report just briefly from ECS, which is the company that did a review of that process, the following is shared. In general, industry guidelines recommend that indoor mold spore levels be less than outdoor levels, and that specific fungal detected indoors be comparable to and or less than the number and types of outdoor levels. The analytical laboratory results indicated the total and individual concentrations of airborne fungal spores reported in classroom samples for 109, 117, and 124 were generally comparable to the total and individual spore concentrations reported in outdoor samples, with a slight elevation of Penicillin aspergillus reported in classroom 117. In classroom 115, there were elevated samples. As a result of the report that we received towards the latter part of last week from ECS that I just read from, there will be additional remediation efforts with a third-party contractor to continue to look at the rooms 115 and 117. We do not believe there is a pervasive mold issue at JBB, and we are committed to solving the challenges that are in front of us. Similarly, I just want to reiterate very clearly that the administrative staff at JBB and the administrative staff in operations is transparent about this issue and believes in student safety. So a suggestion otherwise is simply not within the realm of my thinking with respect to student safety and our staff working to be transparent with parents and staff members of that school.
Just like to assure the board and the public that we won't stop until we've resolved completely all of the issues that we have, and staff have been working diligently and have been on top of this from day one. Once you have a concern with a broken air condition in the middle of summer, there are repercussions of that, and I think that's what we're still dealing with today. But we will continue to update the board as we have done up to this point and keep you informed of progress. And we will continue to update the staff and keep the principal informed as well, because that's very important. And the safety of students and staff is paramount to all of us.
Thank you, Dr. Herron and Mr. Keever. I appreciate the information that you provided this evening. Interesting to hear that you use DCS. In fact, I use ECS Mid-Atlantic for the issues that I was facing in my workplace, and having talked with them, it's been a very busy summer for them. But they are great at what they do, and I trust the work that they do too, having seen it personally. We'll move on to item 10.1, upcoming events. Policy Committee meeting on October 18th, 8:30 in room 203 of Central Office. The Student Advisory Committee.
I'm sorry, I hate to interrupt. That's virtual tomorrow.
It's virtual.
Yes, sir.
I guess it would be. They're both home.
Yes, sir.
On the mend. Yep. Okay. Student Advisory Committee meeting on October 25th, 3 p.m. at War Hill High School Media Center. The Career Ready Advisory Committee meeting on November 8th, 3:30, room 300 of Central Office Annex. The Special Education Advisory Committee meeting on November 9th at 6:30, room 300 of Central Office Annex, and then the VSBA Annual Convention held here in Williamsburg at the Lodge, as well as virtually November 15th through the 17th. I think most, if not all of us, will be attending that. And upcoming meetings. Closed session and work session on November 14th, 4 and 4:30 respectively, room 300 at the Central Office Annex. And then closed session and the regular meeting on the 28th of November, 6 and 6:30, beginning at room 300, then pushing back over here at the James Blair Gymnasium. All right. I think that does it for our work this evening. Thank you all for being here and staying with us. This meeting's adjourned.